The blizzard swallowed Evangeline Merriweather's screams as her body betrayed her in the canvas shelter. Her husband Samuel knelt beside her, his calloused hands useless against the complications tearing through her womb. Outside, 23 souls waited in the storm, their wagon train trapped for 3 days with supplies meant for one. Wagon Master Coleman pushed through the canvas flap. Snow clung to his beard like ash. He looked at Evia writhing on the frozen ground, then at Samuel's hollow eyes. 10 minutes, Coleman said, with or without. Samuel's breath formed crystals in the air. His other children huddled in the next wagon, their faces blue with cold. The moral arithmetic was simple, brutal, one life measured against 23. Evia's hand found his wrist, her grip weak as winter light. "I know about the baby," Samuel whispered. "I know it's not mine." Her eyes closed. The truth had lived between them for months, sharp as broken glass. Captain Red Crow's assault had left more than just shame. It had left this child growing inside her, demanding life from a body that could barely give it. "But you're still my wife," the words hung in the frozen air. Outside, Coleman's voice rose above the wind, calling the train to move. Samuel pressed his lips to Evia's forehead. Her skin burned with fever. He left her with 1 day's water, a handful of hardtack, a wool blanket that would not keep the cold from her bones. The wagons rolled into white nothing. Silence settled over the abandoned shelter like snow over graves. Evia's breathing came in sharp bursts. The child inside her fought against the coming darkness, each movement a small rebellion against death. The wind died. Footsteps approached through the snow. Careful, measured, the canvas rustled. Kitsuana stood in the doorway, his face carved from winter itself. The Comanche warrior had been tracking deer when he found the wheel ruts leading to nothing. His people called him Lone Hawk now, the name fit. He flew alone, hunted alone, would die alone when the time came. He studied the woman on the ground, white, pregnant, dying. His family's faces flickered in his memory, his wife, his daughter, both killed by cavalry sabers while he was away hunting. Justice would be letting this woman join them in the spirit world. Evia opened her eyes, green as spring grass. She saw him standing there, silhouetted against the storm, and did not scream. Her hand moved to her swollen belly, protecting what could not be protected. "Please," she whispered. The word cut through 20 years of hatred. Kitsuana had heard it before, in different voices, different languages. His wife had whispered it as the soldiers came. His daughter had cried it as the world burned around her. He knelt beside the white woman. Her pulse fluttered like a dying bird. The child inside her pushed against his palm when he touched her belly. Fighting, refusing surrender. Kitsuana had delivered foals and calves, helped birth his own daughter under stars that seemed brighter than. His hands knew the rhythm of life entering the world. He heated water over a small fire, prepared the herbs his grandmother had taught him to gather, spoke the old words that gave strength to mothers and children. The labor took hours. Evia gripped his wrists until her nails drew blood. She bit down on leather to keep from screaming. Outside, the wind returned, howling promises of death. But the child came anyway. A daughter. Small but fierce, her lungs strong enough to announce her arrival to the storm. Kitsuana cleaned her with melted snow and wrapped her in the softest piece of cloth he could find. Her eyes opened, dark as midnight. Then he saw what changed everything. The child's features carried more than her mother's bloodline. The shape of her eyes, the color of her skin. This was not just any white woman's baby. Evia saw his recognition. Tears froze on her cheeks. "Captain Red Crow," she said. The name tasted like poison. He took what he wanted. "Left me with this." Kitsuana held the child closer. James Red Crow. Half Comanche, half white. a man who belonged to neither world and terrorized both. The cavalry officer who sold weapons to hostile tribes while wearing the blue uniform, who used his mixed blood as a weapon against everyone. "She's beautiful," Kitsuwana said. Evia sobbed. Not from pain now, but from something deeper, relief, gratitude. The first kindness she had known since that terrible night 9 months ago. "Hope," she whispered. "Her name is Hope." The baby quieted in Kitsuwana's arms. Outside, the storm began to fade, but new dangers stirred in the distance. Red Crow would come looking. He always did. The man collected his bastard children like trophies, especially those born to women who could expose his crimes. Kitsuwana looked at mother and child. 2 lives that should have ended in this frozen wasteland. Instead, they had found each other. Found him. His exile had been punishment. For warning a white settlement about a planned raid. His brother had died in the failed attack. His tribe had cast him out as a traitor. But maybe this was why the spirits had kept him alive, not for revenge. For this moment, this choice. He built up the fire. Melted. More snow for drinking water. Found dried meat in his pack and chewed it soft for Evie to swallow. The work felt familiar, right. Hope slept between them, her tiny fist wrapped around Kitsuwana's finger. She held on tight, as if she knew that letting go meant falling into darkness. Dawn came gray and cold. The storm had passed, leaving the world white and clean. But tracks in the snow told different stories. Cavalry horses, unshod ponies, both circling closer. Kitsuwana studied the signs. Red Crow's men searched in patterns, systematic and thorough. His own people followed older ways, reading the land's memory. Soon both would find this place. He wrapped Hope in warm furs and helped Evia to her feet. She was weak but determined. The kind of strength that came from having something worth protecting. They left the shelter as the sun climbed higher. Behind them, wind erased their footprints. Ahead, the vast emptiness of Texas stretched toward an uncertain horizon, but they were no longer alone. Winter claimed the land with iron teeth. Kitsuwana led them to a hidden canyon where water trickled from rock and cedar trees broke the wind. Ancient people had sheltered here once. Their paintings still watched from stone walls. Evie learned to read the sky's moods. Gray meant snow. Red meant wind. Clear blue meant cold that could crack bones. Kitsuwana showed her which roots stayed sweet underground, how to weave grass into rope that would not break. His hands moved over familiar tasks, sharpening stone, mending hides, building fires that gave warmth without smoke. She watched him work, memorizing the patience in his fingers. Hope grew stronger each day. Her eyes followed movement. Her grip tightened around offered fingers. When she cried, both adults moved toward her without thinking. The canyon became their world, small, protected, real. "My husband taught school," Evia said one evening. Firelight played across her face before we headed west. Kitsuwana carved patterns into a piece of wood. The knife moved steady as breathing. "I can read," she continued. "Write letters, figure numbers." He looked up. His grandmother had taught him some English words, traded from captured books. But the marks on paper remained mysterious. Evie traced letters in the dirt, beside the fire. Simple words first. His name, her name, Hope. "Kitsuna," she sounded out slowly. He touched the marks. These small symbols held power, white men's power. The kind that made treaties and broke them. "Why?" he asked. "Because Hope will need both worlds." The truth settled between them like winter settling on the land. Their daughter would belong nowhere unless she belonged everywhere. Days blurred into weeks. Evia's body healed. Her milk came strong. Hope's cheeks rounded with health. But spring stirred restless in the distance. Kitsuwana found the first tracks on a hunting trip. Cavalry horses moving in search patterns. Too organized to be random patrol. Someone had given them purpose. He said nothing to Evia that night, but he cleaned his rifle twice. The second sign came 3 days later. Smoke rising from the north rim. Not campfire smoke, signal smoke. His people's language written in gray against the sky. Iron Bear was coming. Evia noticed his tension in the way he held his shoulders. The way his eyes found the canyon's exits without seeming to look. What is it? Nothing sure. But his hands spoke different words as they checked weapons and counted supplies. That night, Hope fussed more than usual, as if she felt the change coming through her parents' skin. Evia rocked her by the fire while Kitsuwana studied the darkness. Beyond their light, "I killed a man once," Evia said quietly. Kitsuwana turned from his watching. "Not Red Crow, one of his men, after." Her voice carried no shame, only fact. "He came back for more. I had a kitchen knife." She continued rocking. Hope settled against her shoulder. "Samuel never knew. I buried the soldier myself. Let people think he'd moved on." Kitsuwana understood. Some truths were too heavy for other people to carry. "My brother died because of me," he said. The fire crackled between them. Wind moved through the canyon's mouth. "I warned the settlement at Turtle Creek, told them the raid was coming. Thought I could save lives on both sides." He picked up a stick, fed it to the flames. Iron Bear led the attack anyway. They were ready, waiting. The stick caught fire, burned bright. Swift Arrow fell first, my little brother. He followed me everywhere when we were children. Evia stopped rocking. Listened to the weight of his words. "The tribe cast me out. Side I chose. White blood over red, but I chose no blood over any blood." Hope made small sounds in her sleep. "Dreaming baby dreams. We're both traitors then," Evia said. "To the wrong things." Spring crept closer despite the cold. Ice broke apart in the creek. New grass pushed through old snow. The world prepared for rebirth. And with spring came hunters. Kitsuwana found fresh horse tracks at the canyon's mouth. Shod hooves, military formation. Close enough to smell their cook fires at night. He moved their camp deeper into the rocks. Found caves his people had used for ceremonies. Sacred places where spirits still walked. Evia carried Hope against her chest, following where he led. She asked no questions. Trusted his judgment like she trusted sunrise. But trust could not stop what was coming. Sergeant Hayes found their old fire ring on a morning when fog filled the canyon like smoke. Young soldier, ambitious, the kind who saw promotion in every captured Indian. Kitsuwana watched him from the rocks above. The sergeant studied the ground. With careful eyes. Read the story written in ash and bent grass. Hayes called to his men, pointed toward the deeper canyon. Made hand signals that meant search and surround. Evia clutched Hope tighter. The baby sensed her mother's fear and stayed silent, as if she understood that sound meant death. Kitsuwana counted the soldiers. 6 men, good horses, better weapons. But they did not know this canyon's secrets. He led his family through passages, carved by ancient water. Places where one person could walk, but horses could not follow. The soldiers' voices echoed off stone walls, growing distant. But Hayes was persistent. Smart. He left men at every exit and sent others on foot into the maze. They reached the deepest chamber as footsteps approached from behind. Petroglyphs covered the walls. Spirits danced in painted colors. This was where his people had always come to speak with those who went before. Evia pressed against the far wall. Hope remained quiet in her arms. Mother and child barely breathing. Kitsuwana fitted an arrow to his bowstring. The soldier's boots scraped against stone. Getting closer, then Hope smiled. The first smile of her young life. Bright as morning sun. She looked at her parents and showed them joy pure as water from hidden springs. In that moment, Both adults understood what they were fighting for. Not just survival, but the right to see this child grow into whatever she chose to become. The footsteps stopped. Voices conferred, in whispers, then moved away, searching other passages. Hours passed before silence returned to the canyon. When Kitsuwana finally emerged, he found signs that told a story. The soldiers had made camp at the mouth. They would wait, watch, starve them out if necessary, but other tracks joined theirs in the mud. Unshod ponies, war paint ground into stone. Iron Bear had arrived. His war chief sat on the rim above, visible against the sky, waiting for his exiled brother to show himself. Behind him, warriors held weapons that gleamed in afternoon light. Two forces, one canyon, and in the middle, a family that belonged to neither world. Evia found Kitsuwana studying the situation from their hiding place. She read the tension in his stillness. "How many?" she asked. "Too many." Hope gurgled in her arms. Happy sounds that seemed too pure for this moment. "They want you," Evie said. "They want all of us." The truth hung between them like smoke from distant fires. Red Crow would claim his daughter. Iron Bear would claim justice for Swift Arrow's death. The canyon that had protected them all winter had become their trap. But spring brought other changes too. The thaw had awakened something in the land. Water moved where it had been frozen. Paths opened where ice had blocked them. And somewhere in the distance, a familiar voice called Evia's name. Samuel had found them. Samuel emerged from the morning mist like a ghost returning from the dead. His clothes hung loose on a frame carved thin by months of searching. Guilt had hollowed out his eyes, left them dark as empty wells. He called Evia's name again. The sound echoed off canyon walls, reaching places where soldiers and warriors waited in their separate hungers. Kitsuhana positioned himself between Samuel and the hidden cave. His hand found the knife at his belt. Old habits. Old mistrust, but Evia stepped into the light. Samuel. Her husband stopped walking. Stared at the woman who had grown strong in winter's grip. Her hair moved in the wind. Her skin had bronzed under prairie sun. She carried hope against her chest with the confidence of someone who had learned to protect what mattered. "You're alive," Samuel whispered. "Yes." The single word carried months of survival. Months of becoming someone new. Samuel's eyes found the baby. Hope watched him with curiosity, unafraid. Her mixed features told stories Samuel was only beginning to understand. "She's beautiful," he said. "Yes." Samuel looked past Evia to where Kitsuwana stood in shadow. Recognition flickered across his face. The Comanche who should have been enemy, who had instead become something else entirely. "You saved them." Kitsuwana said nothing. Salvation was too simple a word for what had passed between them all. Samuel stepped closer. His boots crunched on gravel. Each step careful. Asking permission. "I've been looking for you since the storm ended. Following every trail. Asking at every settlement." His voice cracked. "I thought you were dead. You left me to die." The truth sat between them like a stone thrown into still water. Ripples spread outward, touching everything. "I know." Samuel's hands shook. "I've lived with that choice every day since." Hope made small sounds, content sounds. She had no memory of the night she almost died. For her, this canyon was home. These people were family. Samuel saw how naturally Evia moved with the child. How Kitsuana's eyes tracked every shadow, every sound, protecting them both. A family forged by necessity had become something deeper. "I brought help," Samuel said. The words hit like cold wind. Evia's face changed. What kind of help? But she already knew. The kind that came with horses and uniforms, and the certainty that white women needed rescuing from savage hands. Sergeant Hayes stepped from behind a boulder. Then another soldier. Another. They had followed Samuel's trail just as he had followed theirs. Patience rewarded. "Mrs. Merriweather," Hayes called, "step away from the Indian. You're safe now." Safe. The word tasted like ashes in the spring air. Kitsuhana moved closer to Evie, not hiding now, claiming his place beside her. "She chooses where she stands," he said. Hayes raised his rifle, not quite aiming, not quite threatening, the motion that lived between peace and war. "Indian killed her husband's family," Hayes said to Samuel. "Kidnapped her, made her into his woman. We've seen it before." Samuel looked at Evia, really looked. Saw the way she held herself, the strength in her shoulders, the protective fire in her eyes when she looked at Hope. "No," Samuel said quietly. "That's not what happened here." Hayes frowned. His simple story was developing complications. "Sir, with respect, you don't understand what these savages do to white women. I understand what white men do to women just fine." The new voice came from above. Iron Bear sat his horse on the canyon rim, silhouetted against morning sky. Behind him, warriors with painted faces waited for his signal. Hayes swung his rifle upward. His men followed suit. The canyon filled with the sound of weapons being cocked. Iron Bear spoke in Comanche. Kitsuhana translated without being asked. "He says Captain Red Crow approaches from the south. 20 men. Maybe more." Samuel's face went pale. "Red Crow." Evia's arms tightened around Hope. The name still had power to make her afraid. "He's the one," she said. "Hope's father." Understanding dawned in Samuel's eyes. The assault, the pregnancy, the real reason the wagon train had been willing to leave her behind. "That's why you couldn't tell me," Samuel said. "That's why you couldn't hear me." The truth settled between them. Two people who had loved each other once, before shame and fear built walls they could not climb. Hayes looked from husband to wife to the Indian who protected them both. His simple rescue was becoming something else entirely. "Ma'am, if this Captain Red Crow is the father, then we need to get you and the child to safety. Let the law sort out the rest." Iron Bear spoke again, longer this time. His words carried the weight of old anger. Kitsuhana listened, nodded, turned to face the soldiers. "Iron Bear says Red Crow sells weapons to war parties. Arms that kill soldiers and settlers. Both. He plays all sides for profit." Hayes lowered his rifle slightly. "That's a serious accusation. Serious enough to exile me when I tried to stop it," Kitsuhana said. "My brother died in a raid using Red Crow's guns. The war chief seeks justice. For more than my crimes." The canyon held its breath. 3 forces circling each other, each with their own version of right and wrong. Then hoofbeats echoed from the southern passage. Many horses moving fast. Red Crow had found them. The captain appeared like a fever dream made flesh. Tall, handsome, his mixed blood hidden behind blue uniform and polished brass. Behind him rode men who had learned to follow orders without asking questions. "Sergeant Hayes," Red Crow called. "I'll take custody of the woman and child." Hayes hesitated. "Sir, what are your orders regarding the hostiles?" Red Crow's eyes found Iron Bear on the rim, found Kitsuhana standing with Evia. His smile held no warmth. "Kill them all." The words dropped into silence like stones into deep water. Samuel stepped forward. "Captain, these people haven't harmed anyone. Mr. Merriweather, your wife has been living with savages for months. God knows what they've done to her mind. What diseases she's carrying, what lies they've told her." Hope began to fuss in Evia's arms, as if she could feel the tension crackling through the air. Red Crow's attention fixed on the baby, his daughter, his property, his legacy. "Bring me the child," he ordered Hayes. Hayes looked at Evie, at the way she held Hope, at Kitsuhana's hand resting on his knife. Handle, at Samuel's face, hard with new understanding. "Sir, I think we need to hear all sides before we act." Red Crow's mask slipped. Behind the uniform and the smile lived something hungry. Something that took what it wanted and destroyed what it could not keep. "Sergeant, that's an order." Iron Bear raised his rifle. His warriors followed. The canyon walls amplified the sound of many weapons finding targets. Hayes found himself caught between orders and conscience. His men waited for direction. Samuel moved to stand beside Kitsuwena. Two men who should have been enemies, united by the need to protect what mattered. "The child stays with her mother," Samuel said. Red Crow's hand dropped to his sidearm. "Then you'll all die with the savages." But before anyone could draw, a new voice cut through the tension. "Actually, Captain, I think we'll let the law decide that." Judge Morrison sat his horse at the canyon's mouth. An old man with sharp eyes and a reputation for fairness. Behind him rode a U.S. Marshal and two deputies. Providence had arrived just as the canyon prepared to run red with blood. Judge Morrison's presence changed the canyon's gravity. Weapons lowered slowly. The old man's reputation preceded him across 3 territories, fair but unforgiving. A man who let law speak louder than bullets. "Captain Red Crow," Morrison said. His voice carried courthouse authority. "Stand your men down." Red Crow's jaw tightened. His hand remained near his sidearm. "Judge, this is a military matter. Hostiles have taken a white woman captive." "Is that what happened here, Mrs. Merriweather?" All eyes turned to Evia. She stood between worlds, holding hope against her chest. The baby dozed, unaware that her future hung on her mother's next words. Evia looked at Red Crow. At the uniform that had fooled so many. At the handsome face that hid such ugliness. "No," she said. "That's not what happened." Her voice carried across the canyon. Clear, strong, unashamed. "This man assaulted me, left me with child. When I nearly died giving birth, Hitsuana saved both our lives." Red Crow's mask cracked. "The woman's been living with savages, Judge. Her mind is poisoned. She doesn't know what she's saying. I know exactly what I'm saying." Evia stepped forward. Hope stirred in her arms but remained calm, as if she understood her mother's courage. "Captain Red Crow forced himself on me while Samuel was away trading. When I threatened to tell the authorities, he laughed. Said who would believe a woman's word against a decorated officer's?" Morrison's weathered face showed no emotion, but his eyes never left Red Crow. "Serious accusations require serious proof, ma'am." Iron Bear spoke from the rim. His words fell into the canyon in Comanche rhythm. Kitsuwana translated. "Iron Bear has proof. He's been tracking Red Crow's weapon sales for 2 years. Guns that killed his warriors, his son." The war chief gestured. 2 of his men rode forward, leading pack horses heavy with cargo. They dumped crates at Morrison's feet. Rifles spilled onto the ground. New weapons. "Military issue. Found these buried near Red Crow's camp," Kitsuwana continued. "Payment for the next arms deal." Marshal Doyle examined the rifles. "Read the serial numbers stamped into metal." "These are from Fort Gibson's armory," Doyle said. "Reported stolen last month." Red Crow's composure finally shattered. "You'll take the word of murdering Indians over a United States officer?" "I'll take evidence over words any day," Morrison replied. More witnesses emerged from unexpected places. Mary Littlefoot, a Kiowa woman who cleaned at Fort Gibson. She had seen Red Crow loading wagons at night, taking weapons that should have stayed locked away. Thomas Brennan, a trader who had refused Red Crow's offers to sell guns to hostile tribes. He bore scars from the beating that followed his refusal. Sarah Chun, a Chinese woman who ran a boarding house near the fort. Red Crow had attacked her when she threatened to report his activities. She had kept silent from fear until now. Each testimony built a wall around Red Crow, truth by truth, witness by witness. Samuel spoke last. His voice shook with months of carried guilt. I knew something was wrong that night Evia was attacked. Her torn dress, the bruises, but I was too proud to ask. Too afraid to know. He looked at his wife. I failed her when she needed me most. Morrison nodded slowly. The evidence painted a clear picture: corruption, violence, a man who used his position to prey on the vulnerable. Captain Redcrow, you're under arrest for theft of military property, illegal arms dealing, and assault. Redcrow's hand dropped to his gun. But Marshal Doyle was faster. His Colt appeared with practiced speed. Don't make it worse than it already is. For a moment, the canyon balanced on the edge of violence. Then Redcrow's shoulders sagged. The mask fell away completely, revealing the broken thing beneath. They bound his hands with iron shackles, led him away on a horse that would carry him to trial, to judgment, to the end of his reign of terror. Iron Bear watched from above. Justice had been served, but not through warfare. Through truth spoken in daylight. Through courage standing against power. The war chief rode down into the canyon. Dismounted before his exiled brother, the two men faced each other. Years of anger and loss between them. Swift Arrow's death. The tribe's honor, old wounds that had never healed. Iron Bear spoke in their native tongue, formal words, ritual words. Kitsuhana bowed his head, accepted what was offered. He says I may return, Kitsuhana told Evie. Not as the man who was cast out, but as a bridge between peoples. A voice for peace when others call for war. Evia nodded. She understood what this meant. The choice that lay ahead. But first, other choices demanded attention. Samuel approached slowly. His wife held another man's child, stood beside the Indian who had become her protector. The triangle of their lives had shifted beyond recognition. I can give you the divorce, Samuel said quietly. Legal papers. Your freedom. Evia studied the man she had married young. He had failed her when she needed him most. But he was trying to make amends the only way he knew how. What about the children? They're grown enough to understand. And they deserve to know their mother chose to live rather than die. Samuel extended his hand to Kitsuhana. An offering of respect between former enemies. Take care of them. Kitsuhana accepted the handshake, always. Judge Morrison completed the legal necessities. Divorce papers signed and witnessed. Custody of Hope granted to her mother. Freedom. Given form through careful words and official seals. Spring deepened into summer. The canyon that had sheltered them through winter became a place of new beginnings. Evia and Kitsuhana established their trading post at the mouth of the sacred canyon, a place where Comanche and white settlers could meet on neutral ground. Where Hope could grow up speaking both languages, walking between worlds with confidence. Iron Bear brought his people to trade horses for metal tools. Samuel visited with news from the outside world and letters from his children. They spoke. With careful politeness, two men who had learned to respect what they could not fully understand. Hope learned to walk on ground blessed by both peoples. Her first words came in English and Comanche mixed together. A new language for a new kind of family. The trading post prospered. Word spread of the place where fair dealing mattered more than the color of skin or the shape of prayers. Travelers came seeking supplies and stayed for the rare gift of peaceful conversation. 2 years passed. Hope grew into a child whose laughter echoed off canyon walls. She played with children from both communities, teaching them games that had no names in any single language. Evia watched her daughter chase butterflies through prairie grass. The child who had almost died in winter storm now bloomed under summer. Sun, strong, happy, free. Kitsuhana found her standing in the evening light. Their hands touched without conscious thought. The love that had grown between them needed no words. She's perfect, Evia said. She's ours. Hope ran toward them, arms outstretched, ready to be lifted into safety. Behind her, the sun set over. land that belonged to everyone and no one. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new choices. But tonight, they were simply a family watching stars appear in darkening sky. The story that began with abandonment had become one of choosing to stay, of finding home not in places but in people who refused to let each other fall. Hope giggled in her father's arms, pointing at the first bright star. Her voice carried across the canyon, pure as water from hidden springs. In that sound lived all the promise of what was possible when love proved stronger than hate. And that is all to the story, for now. Please let me know where you are tuning in from. Perhaps we will create a story there. Consider liking this video and subscribing to our channel, and if you enjoy our content, click this video on your screen. I promise you, it's worth watching. See you tomorrow.